The Trump administration has opened the door for lawsuits against foreign firms operating on properties in Cuba that were seized from Americans after the 1959 revolution. It's a major policy shift that's angered many US allies. Businesses from Canada, France and the UK are among those who operate in properties that were nationalised after Fidel Castro took power. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced the move on Wednesday.
Today, we're holding the Cuban government accountable for seizing American assets. We're helping those whom the regime has robbed get compensation for their rightful property. And we're advancing human rights and democracy on behalf of the Cuban people.
We believe that this will harm us all, that it will be self-defeating, as they say. Obviously, this will create even more problems, more deterrence, and more confusion for foreign investment.
Let's get more on this now from TRT World's editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, who joins us now from Paris. Hi, Craig. Give us an idea at how significant this move is. Just how many American properties were seized by Fidel Castro when he took power?
Oscar, it's the interest that'll kill you, always. When Castro initiated the so-called confiscation of counter-revolutionary properties law, there was about $1.8 billion worth of property. 60 years later, with the interest, it's ballooned to over $8 billion. And right now at the U.S. Justice Department, there are more than 6,000 claims.
Yes, it's an extraordinary amount, isn't it? But the US State Department says companies operating in Cuba will have nothing to worry about so long as they're not operating on properties that were confiscated from the Americans. Just how many businesses then should be worried? How many are operating on former US properties?
Well, 900 of those approximately 6,000 claims, according to the documents, are corporate. And the largest, believe it or not, is Office Depot. You know the guys who sell you staplers and pencils? They apparently hold rights to an electricity company down there. Also, Starwood Hotel should worry a bit, mostly because they're operating with Gaesa, which is the business and investment arm of the Cuban military. Now, let me go back to those 6,000 claims for a moment. It could be double or triple that, because the figures we now have do not cover the thousands of Cuban Americans who received U.S. citizenship post-confiscation under the counter-revolutionary property law. So it's more than a boxcar load.
Interesting. So what impact might this move have on foreign investment in Cuba, which, as we know, has taken a bit of a hit since Donald Trump came to power with the new sanctions that he's put in place on Havana?
Well, it's going to have a chilling effect on Cuba, which is pretty much already frozen out. These are really harsh. You know, they're called trafficking and seized property laws. You know, all the cruise ships that go in there, Oscar, you've seen the terminals? You know, those belong to American companies or American individuals. And they waited for 20 years to trigger this thing. Quite frankly, these are the severest sanctions possible, and it's going to get worse for them.
Interesting. As you say, there are thousands of lawsuits waiting to happen. We'll see if they get the green light. Craig Copetas in Paris, thanks again for your time.